Welcome to episode 14 of the Medicare Navigators podcast. My name is Becky Hatfield, and I will be hosting today's conversation with Ray Martin of Martin Wealth Management out of Irvine, California, and Ray's son, Elliot Martin, our in-house Medicare expert. We will be talking today, continuing our conversation from last week on how to retire smart. Some of the things we're going to be talking about are: when is the right timing to talk to a wealth management expert? What are some things that people think are a plan in retirement but are not actually a plan? And what should our game plan be for long-term care? All of this and much more will be talked about on today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, this is Elliot Martin.
And I'm Becky Hatfield.
And we're coming to you from opposite ends of the country today to talk about Medicare.
We're asking
and answering all your questions related to Medicare so that way you can make an informed decision. This is the Medicare Navigators podcast.
When is the right time for someone to be talking to you? Because I'm thinking probably a lot of people start coming and talking to you when things kind of are going badly or they're about to go badly. They're kind of seeing like, ooh, I don't know. Should people be talking to you as a financial advisor focused on retirement? Should they be talking to you when they are about to retire, when retirement is 5 years down the road, when they are already retired?
Well, my philosophy, Becky, is it's never too late. It's never too late to plan. There is an optimal time to plan, which I would say if someone's 5 or even 10 years away from retirement, that's a good time to sit down with a professional and really look, do we have a plan for retirement? Where is our income going to come from when we retire? What is the best age or the best time for us to file for Social Security benefits? Do I want to work longer? Do I want to retire at age 65 or 67? Or do I want to wait till age 70 to get my maximum Social Security benefits? So I would suggest, people at least age 60 or even as early as age 55 is a good time to start thinking about this and plan to come see a professional. If I could just interrupt, Becky, one other thing.
Oh, yes.
It's never too late. Even people who are age 7, I mean, we have people that come into our office who are 70, 73, 75, even older than that. And they just have hit a point in their life where they're wondering, how are they doing financially? And they come and see us. So that's why I said it's never too late, but it's always, it's never early either.
Yeah,
Never
exactly.
too early.
You know how you were saying how some people think that they have a plan, but they don't really have a plan? So they're thinking, oh, I have a 401k, I have a pension, I have a Roth IRA, and that's kind of their plan. What you're saying is that that's actually not a plan. You have to have a more robust plan than that. Is there anything else that people do that they kind of lie to themselves, like, this is my plan, but it's not really a plan?
We all tend to wear blinders, I think, and we think that, what we've got is a complete financial plan, and it just never hurts. It's just like medical issues. If I have a medical issue and I go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, you need to have a surgery, or, you need to start this treatment, I'm also going to go and get a second opinion. So I know there's a lot of companies out there that you see them on television all over the place where they're promoting their quote unquote planning service. And really what it comes down to, when you get the final document from the planning service, it doesn't really make any recommendations. It's just basically, we're going to put some money here and put some money there and put some money over there, and you're going to have this mix of all kinds of different things. But they don't generally, here's the thing. We do everything that Wall Street does, our company, but Wall Street doesn't do what we do, if that makes sense. Because most financial management companies, like the big companies, like the Merrill Lynch's and the Smith Barneys and the Morgan Chase company, they're basically helping clients with their 401k. So roll over your 401k, we'll put it in the market. Are they going to analyze their Social Security? No. Do they understand how annuities work? No. Are they going to address the issue of long-term care with their client? No. Are they
Mm.
going to really look at the taxation issue and how much taxes the client potentially will pay? Most likely not. They don't really do that because they're in the business of just gathering money, gathering assets. They're not in the business of providing holistic financial planning.
That's interesting. So they're kind of more focused on the stocks and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and you're focused on more of the holistic, how can we pri provide protection? How can we look out for the medical side of things, the
Mhm.
taxation and all of that?
Yeah.
Um,
And I
when
guarantee
I
you also that the brokerage
mm,
industry, they don't have a clue what's going on with Medicare. So when people go to the big brokerage companies, they're going to get service in one of those areas, which is market advice. But there's no advice for taxation, for Medicare, for Social Security, for long-term care. Those issues are not really addressed.
Yeah. One thing as well that I don't think we've touched on yet, legacy planning, right?
Mhm.
What
Yep.
happens when we pass? Do we have
Right.
everything correct? All our beneficiaries correctly outlined, estate
Mhm.
planning, life insurance, all those types of things as well. Uh,
isn't that like a lawyer thing though? That's where I'm confused. I thought that was like something you were supposed to talk to a lawyer about.
Well, you're right. Only a lawyer can draft a living trust. But
Okay.
but we have looked at so many living trusts because when clients come to see us, they bring their living trust to us. So we look at it. We've reviewed so many living trusts, but we don't change their trust. We don't create a living trust, but we have an attorney that works with us so that we can, if it's appropriate for someone to have a living trust, then we can make that recommendation. But Elliot's exactly right. Estate planning is also a big part of that, one of those pieces in the puzzle. It's very important that people have some estate planning done, that they have powers of attorney set up, that they also have trustees created, and could most likely their children, that they have trustees for their trust, that they also have a healthcare power of attorney as well. So if something happens to them, their family can help make decisions. Because if someone ends up in the hospital and they're unconscious, and they have no power of attorney, guess who's making the decisions for that patient? It's the hospital. And the family really doesn't have any authority, legal authority to make any changes. So if the hospital decides to pull the plug, there's not much the family can do. They can try to take the hospital to court, but by that time, it's like the horses are already out of the barn. Yeah. So even at a young age, families should have a living trust, or at the minimum, they should have powers of attorney. So husband should have powers of attorney for his wife. Wife should have powers of attorney for the husband. And also the parents should have powers of attorney for unmarried children. Yes.
unmarried. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or unmarried children that are adults as well.
Right. Yeah.
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 Let's talk about long-term care. I
Mhm.
think that's something that's on a lot of people's minds because you hear horror stories about people who kind of didn't prepare for that eventuality because it is kind of an eventuality that most of us are going to need long-term care. How does one go about planning for that well?
A lot of people, when I ask them, what's your plan for long-term care? And usually they'll say, well, we don't have a plan. And my answer to them will be, well, you do have a plan, but it's the government plan. And what do I mean by the government plan? What I mean by that is if they don't have a plan of how to cover themselves or protect themselves for long-term care, the government, before they would ever be eligible in California for Medi-Cal or in other states, Medicaid, they have to spend down all their assets. The government will require them to spend all of their assets down. And if they end up with a big nursing home bill, the state can come back and attach their property to pay
Mm,
for those bills. So everybody has a long-term care plan. Just most people don't realize it, that they're on the government plan. So
mm,
people are living longer than ever before. Medical science is great. It's keeping us all going. And diseases and illnesses that people died from regularly 100 years ago, Today, we live on. We live another 20, 30 years because of a simple thing like a blood pressure medication or a blood thinner. Life expectancy, when Medicare first was created, life expectancy at that time was 60 years of age. So now life expectancy for men is around 86. For women, it's 88. So people can live and receiving Social Security for 30 years and Medicare for 30 years.
So how do you have a plan for long-term care if you don't want to go that route of the government taking everything that you have before you pass to pay for your long-term care? What do you do?
Well, that's a good question. So it really depends on the circumstance, each person's circumstances. So everybody's situation is so different and unique, Becky.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they need to sit down with a professional advisor who really can look at their whole financial picture. Because for some people, they can actually self-insure. In other words, they have so much in the way of savings and assets and real estate. And you know what? They can probably self-insure. They don't need insurance to protect them. But there's the large middle class of America really has to look at some kind of protection for themselves, or what's their plan if someone needs long-term care. And there's more than just one type of long-term care. Most people are aware of long-term care insurance, where it's like auto insurance. You pay on it, and then you pay again, and then you pay again, and you pay again, and you pay again. You pay forever. Okay. And it's just like auto insurance in that sense. You never want to use it. Okay. None of us want to use our auto insurance, right? None of us look forward. Oh, I can't wait till I can use my auto insurance. It's the same way. No one wants, oh, I can't wait to use my long-term care insurance. No, nobody wants that. So it becomes a mental block, that part. There's another type of insurance, long-term care insurance, which is based, again, it's the insurance industry, but it's called asset-based long-term care. So if you can imagine, if you have $100,000 sitting in the bank, and if you just moved that $100,000 from account A to account B with an insurance company, the insurance company will pay you interest on that account, but they'll also provide you protection for long-term care. Most people are not aware of that. And if they never need long-term care, guess what? They get their money back.
Wow.
Whereas
So
on a
this is not long-term care insurance. This is something different.
it's called asset-based long-term care.
Asset-based long-term
Right. It's
care.
not the traditional long-term care insurance. It's called asset-based.
Right.
So you have to have an asset that you can allocate it's kind of a parking. Instead of parking it over at the Walmart, you're parking it at Nordstrom's. Think of it that way.
Yeah, you're putting it in a more quality form of protection or whatever.
Yes, and the
Okay.
money is guaranteed with the insurance company, and people can, if they change their mind and they don't want to keep it, they can get their money back later on.
I love that.
Yeah,
That sounds like a great plan.
the only problem is people have to have some assets to do it.
Money. Yeah.
And if someone has no assets, well, then they're going to have to go the route of the traditional long-term care, or they'll be on the government plan.
Okay, so I'm so ignorant about these things. So when I think of assets, I think of your house. I don't know. Like there has to be other things besides your house that count as an asset, right? So what are some other
Right.
things that count as an asset?
Oh yeah, sure. That's a good question. So assets, there's two categories of assets. There's protected assets, and then there's spendable assets. So
Okay.
protected assets would be things like your home. Okay, that's a
Okay.
protected asset. It's not going to go down in value. And if it does, I mean, real estate sometimes goes down a little bit, but basically it's protected, right? Spendable assets, and so also life insurance becomes a protected asset as well, by the way. So if someone has a life insurance policy, that's a protected asset. And by the way,
Okay.
even if someone gets sued, life insurance protects them from lawsuits. So
Hmm.
they won't, the insurance company is not going to allow you to cancel your life insurance because you got sued, right? So those are protected assets. Spendable assets would be everything else, would be your 401k, 403B, 457. It would be savings that you have in the bank. It would be stocks, bonds, any other type of liquid assets, savings accounts, money market accounts. All those are considered spendable assets. So those are the
Okay.
two types of assets: protected assets and spendable assets. So when we're talking about protecting your assets, we're talking about protecting both.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So you have to have assets, which a lot of people don't have that because
Right.
maybe they live in a house, but they don't own it outright, or they don't have a life insurance policy, or they don't have any of these like retirement things like 401ks or 403bs.
Mhm.
So to make sure that we're safe with our long-term care, it's helpful to have actual assets.
Well, yes. If someone doesn't have any assets, then they don't really need to worry about long-term care because they're going to end up on the government program right away.
Regardless. Yeah.
Yeah. So see, the government plan comes into play in two circumstances. If someone is very, very low income and they have no assets, they don't need long-term care insurance because if they have any money in the bank, they're going to spend that immediately the first day they walk into a nursing home, or if they need home health care that runs $25 to $45 an hour, that money, poof, it'll be gone in no time, and they'll be on the government plan. Someone who has assets has three, four, $500,000 in 401k and has a home and has a couple $100,000 at the bank and savings accounts. They're also on the government program, but if they needed long-term care, they're going to have to start spending those assets. The government won't give them any benefits until they've spent those assets down. I don't know what the number can vary from state to state. In California, I think it was you have to spend it down to like $90,000, and then the surviving spouse can stay in the house, and the sick spouse can go on Medi-Cal.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Medicare Navigators podcast. We have a weekly Medicare 101 webinar that we would love to have you join us on. Go to our website at www.martinmedicare.com to reserve your spot today. Please join us again next week as we continue this conversation. All information related to this episode is listed below in the show notes.